All right, guys, we're back again. COVID Cabal, October 30th, 2025. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see you guys a little bit later than even usual. I got so much going on, guys. We had the launch of the masterclass in just 2 days. So, okay, that's your pitch for the final discount. Get it at a song. Get a 40% discount. You buy it in the next 48 hours. But yeah, I've been super busy with that, filming the last coaching videos for it. We did all the major content in studios, but I'm doing some digestion videos with slides. It's been so busy in the best way possible. So I appreciate you guys waiting for our COVID Cabal as usual. If you're here, leave a comment in the chat. If you're here, leaving a comment in the chat. Who is here? Who's here? If you're here, leave a comment in the chat. That's what I want to see. I want to see those comments. We are drinking today a Heidelmann Bergweiler Riesling, which is so light, this is going down like water. So don't think I'm super, even though I've been up since like 2:30 a.m. Don't think that I'm just slamming it back. It's hard not to. 9%, you barely even feel it. Patent spotting. What's up, sir? From the United Kingdom. How are you doing? If you guys are here, leave a comment in the chat. If you're here, leave a comment in the chat. Let's see who else is here. Come on, roll call. Let's do the roll call here before we jump into this. Roll call. Who else is here? Drop a comment. Let's get this going so we can get this stuff going. J-Dog, my man. Train Companion checking in. Count time, Train Companion. Count time. You better be by your bunk. Alexander, Austin, Tony, Brian, what's up? What's up, people? All right, we got a good crowd here. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. So, we've had some interesting news coming out with the labor market just the other day. Mass layoffs everywhere. Meanwhile, what else are we seeing? We are seeing H-1B visas soar from the tech companies. Fugitive Caesar has some good points here. He says, I think Trump has been playing softball with business leaders to bring in 20 trillion in investments. The logic was Trump didn't want to crash the economy during reindustrialization. Business leaders have misinterpreted this as weakness in a signal to fuck over Trump's base. I think this is an accurate read on it. I might also say that it's not so much necessarily that they just interpreted this as weakness, but that they were always bad faith to begin with. And they were waiting for the opportunity to strike. You have to understand that this group has really wanted the United States to crash. They had set everything up for it, and Trump pulling all this capital back. Like, I want to make a point here. This is actually an important point because we live in the alternative news space now. And back in 2020, if you were listening to alternative news, there was like a big explosion of it. Before that, it was mostly, InfoWars and a few other sites. It was very fringe. Now, 2020 hits, there's all sorts of like independent media, various podcasters showing up, people with all their, opinions and, their secret intel, which of course, to some extent, we got a little bit fooled from in season 1, COVID Cabal, right? But Simon Parks and Charlie Ward. Oh man. Sometimes I think back at some of those people. So what we have to understand now is that their way of distorting the playing field is not to try to suppress alternative media, but it's to flood it with bullshit. And a lot of the geopolitical media stuff is like this. Like, so, you know, not to digress from our main topic today, but this was the big thing with the BRICS, right? The BRICS are actually, you know, Washington is evil, and, you know, the BRICS are the strong alliance against Washington. They're going to take over. And while it's true that we are moving into a multipolar world, the rumors of America's death have been largely exaggerated, to paraphrase a famous quote. And the BRICS do not work together either. Multipolar doesn't mean unified bloc against America. It's very, America can divide and conquer then just as much as the other way around. And by the way, what do you see Lula doing in Brazil? Lula's cracking down on the cartels. Lula supports American action against Venezuela. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's because the writing's on the fucking wall. We've got Milei in Argentina with a huge mandate behind him on your border, and we're about to fucking take down. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to actually overthrow the government of Venezuela, although we probably will. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to be like, you know, 2003 neocon with my rhetoric, okay? But suffice to say, we are showing Venezuela and Colombia who's boss, Mexico who's boss. Brazil says, I don't want smoke. I don't want any smoke, right? Putting up his hands, even though Lula is a communist. And I am really interested in seeing, I can't trust him at all. I am actually wondering, I threw this out as a comment end of last COVID cabal. I am wondering if Lula genuinely does cooperate, and if this is not just some, you know, subterfuge, which it very well could be, because again, Lula's a communist. If we're going to get some concessions on Bolsonaro, I think Trump's a very loyal person. He's not going to let Bolsonaro rot in a Brazilian prison. He's not going to let him rot in a Brazilian prison for 22 years. So if there actually is, part of the pressure that's going to be put on Brazil is going to be to let Bolsonaro leave the country and come to America at a minimum. I think that's a minimum. He's not gonna negotiate in any deep way with Lula if Bolsonaro and Bolsonaro's people are not protected. Side point. But the reason I say this stuff is because you had all this alternative media talking about the BRICS are, you know, BRICS fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Okay. Big cloud of fart gas. That's what the BRICS are. But why do they have all these narratives? Oh, the dollar's collapsing. No one's going to want to buy the dollar. Let me let you guys know what's going to happen is that there's going to be a domestic market in the dollar backed by gold, and an international market for the dollar backed by treasuries. So it's not, there's plenty of demand for dollars. There's more demand than ever for dollars. It's the euro that's actually, the demand for the euro is actually going down. We've discussed this at length. I'm not going to continue to, I mean, I will on other episodes, but not this episode. But what I'm trying to say here, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because they had a plan. Now, those of us in this alternative space, the Trump MAGA space, have really had it under contention that their plan was fucked up ever since Trump won in 2016. And I've said this many times. That was the most important fight. When we won in 2016, they lost. Everything after that point has just been about how much can they prevent a golden age from happening. But they have no actual victory path. They only have paths to spoil our progress in varying degrees. And the reason for that is because the way that this sort of the service, the self, dark operators work with their plans is they have to have everything kind of hit in a very precise manner. So they do a psyop that goes this way, and then there's a predictable response that they can do that'll go this way, and then it goes this way and this way and this way. And it's almost like if you're trying to if you're in metallurgy and you're trying to fashion some object, the blacksmith has to be hit at multiple different directions, one after another to fashion the steel, the hot steel in a particular, form that you want it to be in. If there is not proper sequencing of these, everything breaks apart. They're trying to create an inverted parasitic structure as it is. There's no room for error. And they frankly did not have the I think that they thought that the internet would help them because the internet would allow them to control everything. But the reality is that the internet introduced noise, introduced the ability for awareness to get ahead of plans. So in the past, when you only had media that you could control and that was all the people got, you had pretty reliable predictability about where public opinion was going to turn. You can't do that now. Now narratives are constantly fighting and affecting each other, and there's no centralized control. So, okay, again, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because they had a plan for 2026 to be this collapse of the US economy, and you can see that they're still trying to make it happen, but there's a lot of obvious pressure because you have Trump going against it. Trump, and so you have all these people who still have these predetermined narratives that the dollar is going to collapse, the Fed's going to print to infinity, and none of that is happening. In fact, if anything, the Fed is not printing enough right now. So this is a point to be cautious about the alternative space. The plan, as far as I can tell, to fight against this stuff, Trump is going to fight against this not only by probably putting some pressure on H-1B, but it's going to be to start deporting people in higher and higher numbers. So we saw recently that there is disputes between ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Surprisingly, on the rumors are on an axis I would not have expected. I don't think a lot of people would have expected, which is Kristi Noem, our favorite Botox bimbo, one of Trump's harem of MILFs. She has she's actually apparently the hardliner against Homan, who you would have thought Tom Homan is like, he looks like an executioner, right? So, but apparently Tom Homan wants to have ICE continue to do raids the way that they had been doing them, which is, target, go after it. It's not that Homan is obviously an ally, so please interpret this correctly. But the dispute that's been going on is that Kristi Noem has been firing top officials in ICE around the country because she wants more raids all over the place. She wants, when you see these high profile raids, these like feints where, you have people like it's actually Border Patrol. That's what I'm about to get to. When you have them go to a Home Depot and they grab a bunch of illegals at a Home Depot, put them in a van. That stuff is Border Patrol. Actually, it's not ICE, it's Border Patrol. Border Patrol are the really aggressive ones. They're the ones who know the situation really well. ICE tends to do kind of more like targeted raids against, criminals. Homan's approach is that we need to go after the easy propaganda targets. Kristi Noem is like, I just want to get those numbers up at this point. And I think Homan's approach was correct for where we've been so far. I agree with the change, actually. I agree with our resident MILF at DHS. It's time to ramp up the raids. We don't need to develop more consensus on the issue. I think in the beginning, it was very important that we targeted these, low-hanging fruits to win the propaganda war. As far as I'm concerned, though, after Charlie Kirk was killed, I don't really know that we need to. It's not even just the death of Charlie Kirk. It's the overall orientation of like what we're dealing with here. That's what I think. I think it's the overall orientation of what we're dealing with here. There is no reason to be delaying. We have to go full speed ahead now. We took the first, 9 months, frankly, to show what we're about, 6 to 9 months. It's time to, show that they're operating in bad faith is what I mean. Once you've proven they operate in bad faith, you got to go forward. And is the public gonna, are some people gonna have some issues? Sure. Some people have weak spines on this topic, but they need to stop having a weak spine because look at this. So the food stamps are being cut. Now I don't know if I actually had a chance to talk about this, right? But the reason that the food stamps were, why are the Democrats doing this? Why are they boxed into this corner? Why is this happening? Well, what I would say, to be honest, is that they have to sacrifice their constituency. I think they've been outmaneuvered. I think that they were hoping that the cuts would start to affect Trump's popularity by going against the MAGA base. But Timothy Mellon, and I got to talk a little bit more about Timothy Mellon sometime, because Timothy Mellon is a great man, a really great man. And, I named my son Thomas because that's my wife wanted Timothy. I wanted Thomas because Thomas goes all the way back to the War of the Roses in my family. So it's like a very traditional name, a lot of reasons, whatever. But I'm going to name my next son Timothy for sure. And I'm going to name him because I like to give names to have a reason to name somebody after, to name your kid after something. And my wife just doesn't think like that. It's fine. She just likes the name Timothy. I like the name Timothy too. But now I have a reason to name my next son Timothy. And that's going to be after Timothy Mellon, who is the last great noble in America, the last great patriotic noble in America. People don't realize that Timothy Mellon, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go back to the chart. Timothy Mellon, when Trump was trying to find people to fund the border wall and there was all these issues, Mellon put down like virtually every single dollar for it. He put down like $50 million for the wall. That was the private donor. Mellon also, just recently, he's the one who's paying for the troops during the government shutdown, like $100 million. This is obviously Mellon of the Carnegie Mellon, the University Carnegie Mellon. The Mellon family was a big railway magnate family. Timothy Mellon is how the American aristocracy used to be. Timothy Mellon is a patriot. He's a reclusive American billionaire patriot who has contributed and backed MAGA in completely quiet ways. Tony, you haven't heard. Tony's saying I haven't heard about this. Nobody has heard about this. Nobody has heard about it. It only was discovered on here. It was a hidden thing. I'm gonna bring something up right now. I'm gonna see if I can put it up here. Yeah, he just gave $130 million for our troops. Yeah. He hasn't even had a photo published of him in decades. I'm going to show you guys a photo. I'm going to bring this up right here. This is like the old school WASP noblesse oblige that we don't have anymore because of a bunch of like fucking vermin. I'm going to show this to you guys real quick. Put this up here. Because I want you to see him. I want you to see the physiogeny. That's what I want you to see. I want you to see this man, Timothy Mellon. $130 million donation fund to troops. Totally fucked the left because they were expecting this to hit the troops. That was going to create a cascade event that was going to undermine Trump's base and support. Instead, all of the government cuts are falling on the welfare recipients, right? If we haven't heard about it, it's unlikely Trump's enemies would have either. Yeah, he chooses his shots very well. He's gained more attention because he's done the stuff that he's done has been so high profile that he's getting more attention, but he's never courted attention. Nobody ever sees him. He's one of those people, the right is filled with a bunch of fucking losers like Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman, this billionaire cuck, daddy's boy, daddy's money, really not somebody who's contributed a single thing to the world. And he's like complaining about people voting for Silva in New York. Why aren't people doing anything about this? Why aren't they encouraging Silva to drop out? Well, first off, you fucking retard. Silva won his primary. Cuomo didn't. Second off, Cuomo killed people in nursing homes across there during COVID. Third off, you fucking created Mondami, you dumb piece of shit. You've been funding open borders policies for years. And now, oh my God, but he's anti-Semitic. Well, you reap what you fucking sow. Unbelievable. They can't even just this is what drives me crazy. It's what drives me crazy. These Republican billionaires, they can't give a single, they won't give, Cernovich just talked about this at length. They won't give money to anything on the right. They're worried oh, is that 50,000 being spent well? They're a bunch of fucking misers. And then all they care about after they don't do fucking anything is that then you have a communist coming into the city who's going to literally expropriate their property. Maybe they deserve it. I want Trump to arrest Mondami, but not until he's taken Bill Ackman's penthouse. I want the billionaires to feel the results of the revolutions that they actually pursue. Let him take let Mondami take Ackman's penthouse. And then when we put down the revolt, we'll take it as collateral for having to clean up all the fucking mess these people created. Unbelievable. But then you have Timothy Mellon. Timothy Mellon, not, what did I say? What did I say, Elvis? I fucked up, didn't I? What did I say? Curtis Silva. What did I say? Silva? Anyway, correct me in the chat here if I mess something up. But it's the bottom line. Timothy Mellon, meanwhile, there's a need. Here's 50 million. Here's 130 million. One phone call, 130 million. That is what we really need on the right. Yeah, I didn't realize he was correcting his own typo. I just saw I don't know. I messed things up in here. So anyway, but this is the situation. So I'm going to go back to the graph here. Look at this. Food stamps by ethnicity. Look at white Americans down here at the very bottom. They put Italians. They didn't think Italians were white. That's such a fucking meme right there. They didn't think Italians were white. By the way, no offense to my Indian friends, but this isn't an accurate number because okay, maybe it's accurate for food stamps, but for overall government benefits, it's not accurate. But look at this, but obviously they are not the worst offenders from this kind of welfare situation. But look at this. Look at this. Look at all these people. Let's keep going with this. Let's get more outraged. Look at this. Welfare used by natives in legal status. Illegal headed households take the most. Now, look, to be clear, people are throwing this around and they're saying that they're looking at this as total. It's not total. It's that percentage of illegals. It's not 59% of all welfare. However, it doesn't actually matter because illegals should be taking 0 in welfare and legal immigrants should be taking less than natives. But instead, what we are seeing consistently in every one of these categories virtually is that the less You belong here, the more you take. That's what it is. The less you belong here, the more you take. The immigrants coming into the country are overwhelmingly takers. Look at this. Iraq refugee on snap cuts. I can't stay in the US without government support. Yeah. As I said, trust the plan. Trust the fucking plan, man. This is unbelievable. This stuff is nuts. And now look at, why did Mondami get in power? Okay, let's look at this now. New York City public housing. 4% white. Everything here is from minorities and immigrants. Yeah, well, I mean, look at the Somalis are the worst. Somalis are literally like, if you could think of a pestilence, it's the Somalis. And actually, I think it's pretty interesting that the guy who did the Halo, look at this, Somali right up here, 42.4%. Isn't it interesting, by the way? Think about this. Iraq, Somalia, Afghan. It's like we attack those countries for a reason. You know, the guy who did Halo's soundtrack is running for, you know, like, like anybody who grew up, any millennial for sure knows Halo. Amazing game, but it was an amazing storyline too. Well, guess what? The guy who wrote the soundtrack for Halo, running for Congress as a Republican, in his talking points are, let's stop the flood. We have to stop the flood, right? Which is basically the big zombie pestilence. It's a reference to the waves of immigration. It's very interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. But this is the big thing, guys. This is the big thing. They're going back. Trump sets refugee admissions at 7,500 for 2026, admitting mostly white South Africans. He also just recently expanded it to Westerners and other countries too, who are being oppressed by their government. I've been telling you guys for the last 9 months or whatever, 7 months, 8 months. It's going to happen. There's like the line with this stuff is 100% just going to be around whether they were givers to the country. I am hopeful that when you take it all in the aggregate for people, and I think you have to be broad in your assessments, do they get loans? That has to weigh in. But if these immigrants were contributors to the country, to the tax base, then I am, at least right now, I'm in favor of them staying. But you know what? It's going to be like 20% of them. That's how bad it is. It's going to be like 20%. That's how fucked up this whole situation's gotten. So there's going to be mass denaturalizations and mass deportations. And the reason for it is because not only where public sentiment is, and not only because we're at a tipping point, but because of those job numbers I was talking. Well, I'm going to show that in a second, actually, again. But because of those job numbers I was showing before, I removed that here. But those businesses are cutting jobs. They're cutting jobs in large part because of artificial intelligence. And by the way, did you notice that Bill Gates and all these tech people, all of a sudden, after all these years of talking about climate change is so bad. Now they're like, oh, it doesn't matter anymore. They just like, and this is how it is with the left. It's a fucking hive mind because they are not even, they are going to completely forget that they ever cared about climate change. They don't have independent thought. The hive says, focus on this. Don't focus on that. There's not going to be like 10% of them are going to be like, wait, I thought climate change was important. The other 90% doesn't matter. After getting on your ass about it for years, demanding you change policies for it for years, the moment that the people who program them say, Nothing wrong. Climate change is no big deal. Okay, climate change is no big deal. They're never going to talk about it. They're never going to worry about it. They're never going to try to make it into an issue. Because they're not even just brainwashed, they just do not have independent thought, which is why you don't argue with them. You don't argue with them. There's no point. This is what it is. NPC software download update. There's no point arguing with them. You are not arguing. I'm not trying to say that they're not a human being, but they don't have independent thought on a political topic. It's completely programmed into them. So the reason, of course, that the tech people are doing this is because their big AI clouds require huge amounts of energy. And by the way, this is why their whole plan was stupid and was never going to work, because those plants, the amount, if you want to have a complete dystopian control grid, the amount of energy it requires to maintain in the replacement of the batteries and the cells that it requires to maintain is astronomical. You have massive depreciation in the hard material. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy. Until we get free energy, you can't have something like that. So to try to undergo this massive, deindustrialization, the move to green energy, which has no ability to actually even like wind power cannot even support the grid on its own in like 95% of locations because the wind is not consistent enough. Putting aside what it does to the birds or to the whales if it's offshore. It doesn't have enough consistent wattage because the wind ebbs and flows. So it goes off. They have to turn on a coal plant. And every time they turn on and off the coal plant, it costs more energy because it obviously costs more energy to get a fire started than it does to keep a fire going. So if they had just kept the coal plant on the entire time, it would cost less energy than if they had just than rather than using it as a backup for the wind. The point is that they're just a bunch of fucking hypocrites. But their whole thing is falling apart. However, the AI stuff is coming, and there is a good argument I saw, and I think it's accurate, right? That they were pushing. The reason that there was a lot of printing for all these years was up until we got to AI, because AI is going to be creating massive deflation. So that's going to be an interesting thing, something we have to think about as we go forward. I want to hit some of these comments you guys made. I want to be respectful to some of you guys. Appreciate your comments. Let's go here before we sign off. Japan treaty after World War II and USA domination over it was surreal to read. Trump is liberating every country to work with the USA in mutually beneficial way. This is being applied to every country globally, resetting the chessboard before the global golden age for all. Absolutely. But guys, we have a long slog till the early 2040s. Don't think that we are like, if you view this whole thing from, and if you're in esoteric circles, okay, that was the end of the world. 2012, end of the world. It wasn't actually the physical end of the world, but it was the end of an age. And ever since then, we've been moving into the quote unquote end times esoteric conversation. The bottom line, though, is that there have been many people who have said the same thing using different modalities to predict it. Astrology, for instance, that 2012 through 2044 rather, is sort of like the whole passageway, the ascension passageway. Who's going to make it? Who isn't? This is the transition. And actually, even though we like to think that it started with Trump in 2015, you can actually see that it all kind of, the veil started to break in Obama's second term. That's when I saw it break. Even though I didn't understand what was happening, I saw it start to happen. I saw that it was like a mask slip, and I was like, what? What's going on here? And it was only Trump that made it, you began to gradually see it. So we have a long way to go, guys. We are like 1/3 of the way through, maybe. So, maybe 40%. So you better strap yourself in. We got a long journey ahead, and maybe there'll be like, 30 seasons of COVID Cabal. Who knows? All right. Elvis, why is Trump moving high-ranking officials to military bases? I hadn't heard that. So I'm gonna have to look into that for the next show, which I intend to have on Monday. But guys, I appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words, Romeo. And yeah, AI is gonna have to be a conversation for us in the future. There's no doubt about it. So I love you guys. I will see you on the next show. Have a great weekend. And yeah, course is dropping. Last day to get it on discount tomorrow. All right, so buy that. It's in the comment below in the video, in the intro or whatever description. That's the word I'm looking for. And like and comment if you haven't done it on the video on YouTube. I love you.